Let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Edwin Maatkamp, who writes, "Hello, John and company. I just wanted to know if you saw that Georgia is planning on reopening movie theaters next week on April 27th. Well, I am very anxious to get back to the movies. Doesn't it seem like this might be a bit premature? I feel like we're just starting to see the curve flatten out and we're jumping right back in. Am I being too paranoid? Or is this the right time to get the theaters open again? Thanks." All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, I had to do a little bit of a double take. I'm going to admit, when I saw this news that the governor of Georgia has announced that starting this coming week, movie theaters, restaurants, hair salons, gyms, all that kind of stuff are going to be able to be open for business again. This comes to us from Variety, who wrote, "Georgia will allow movie theaters and restaurants to reopen on April 27th. The governor announced on Monday. Governor Brian Kemp said the state was on track to meet the criteria for phase 1 of the process of reopening the state by next week. Kemp said businesses would have to observe social distancing, screen workers for illness, and enhance sanitation. Subject to the specific social distancing and sanitation mandates, theaters, private social clubs, and restaurants, dine-in services will be allowed to reopen." So that comes to us from Georgia. Now, a little bit later in that comment, the governor of Georgia pointed out that what they are seeing, and I don't know if this is true or not, but this is what the governor of Georgia said, that they are seeing the curve flatten out, which is, of course, what we've all been working towards, is trying to get that curve to flatten, then hopefully dip into its big decline. So they said, we're seeing the curve flatten, so time to reopen the businesses. Now, Rob, you know, I am somebody who is very anxious to get back to the movie theaters. I am very anxious to get back to the movie theaters. I want to get back in there just as soon as I can. I cannot wait to go to the movies. And I'd like them to open sooner rather than later. However, next week? Really? I mean, look. Again, on this show, I don't want to get into politics. I don't like to get into politics. This is not a political issue. I mean, this is a virus that knows no political affiliation, so I don't care. I don't care if you're red or blue. In this house, we're all movie fans together. But as a movie fan, is next week really okay? Look, there's a couple problems here. First of all, a bunch of the theater chains have already said, "Oh, that's great, but there's no way we're going to be ready to open next week." Most of these theater chains and everything have furloughed all their employees. They've got to rehire, retrain. Then they got to figure out how they're going to have content to play on their screens. They got to get their supply chains, because Rob, logistics is not a fake mythological thing. Logistics are real. They have to get their supply chains up and running again. They have to get everything. So the reality is most of the movie theaters in Georgia will not be open on April 27th. Okay, so there's that. But on top of that, is it even in theory and in principle a good idea to try to open these theaters right now? And I'm not so sure about that. Because saying, and again, believe me, I'm no medical expert. I am no medical expert. But Rob, seeing somebody say, "Oh, the curve is starting to flatten, therefore we can ease up on our efforts." To me, that's like saying, "Oh, good, this parachute has slowed my descent. I guess I can take it off now."
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Again, I want the theaters open sooner rather than later. But next week seems really optimistic, especially at a time when it seems like we're reading of certain states now haven't even hit their peaks. And now we're going to relax our efforts. You know, our efforts have gotten us to the point that, oh, good, the curve is starting to flatten. We're making progress. We're almost there. And I don't know. It feels weird, Rob. It just feels weird that next week is when they would target. But again, like a person writing in the email, maybe I'm just being overly cautious. And maybe there's maybe in the state of Georgia, there's a good case to be made for this. And maybe it'll be for the best. I'm not sure. I'm not sitting here claiming to be the harbinger of absolute truth. I don't know. I'm guessing it just feels a little off to me. Rob, the sound of movie theaters opening is music to all of our ears. I mean, it's a soothing ointment. It's a soothing balm on the burn of the current situation. But I don't know. Is this the right time to do it? How do you see it?
Well, Yesterday, John, almost 450 people died in New York City or New York State from this disease. That was just yesterday. And while that's obviously the largest, the hardest hit state, there's still people dying all over the country. To my mind, people could equate this with the flu or whatever. It's different than that. And it's not just people going to movie theaters. It means the state is open for business. People are going to be traveling across the state. People are also going to be, importantly, traveling across state lines to serve all of these businesses. And in my mind, it's too soon. It's too early. And I understand everybody wants the economy running again. So do I, John. I would love nothing better than to go to my favorite Mexican restaurant, be able to sit in a restaurant environment, eat restaurant cooked food, drink their margaritas, and really enjoy myself, and then go to the ArcLight and see a movie here in Pasadena. I would love that. But you know what? I don't want to love that until I know exactly that there is zero risk that I'm going to attract or contract this disease. I mean, and I think it is premature. And it's like, what's frustrating about these kinds of things to me, again, has nothing to do with politics. We have seen how diseases and pandemics work. We've seen it in the past. If you go back to 1918, the Spanish flu, the second wave was more devastating than the first wave was. And we already know this. And okay, if you want to open your economies, fine. But, you and I have been hunkered down. We work every day. I work 7 days a week. I've had no break during this time. And I want to make sure, luckily, we're in a state where we have social distancing until at least May 15th. And we'll see what happens. But like you said, I just think this is premature, especially movie theaters, which are public spaces where you're enclosing a bunch of people in a room. No matter how far away you are, people still have to go to the bathroom. They're still going to buy refreshments. It's not like every time you step up to get your popcorn, they're going to wipe down those counters. I mean, maybe they are, but I see it. I understand opening businesses, but movie theaters, public gathering spaces where lots of people go, I don't think it's the best idea.
Here's, I'll tell you right now, here's a question. Actually, I know this for a fact. Here's a question that these movie theater chains right now are wrestling with harshly with their legal departments. And that is this. What are movie theaters' legal exposure to being sued if somebody gets sick in one of their theaters? Is the movie theater going to be exposed legally? Can they be, are they vulnerable to lawsuits and stuff like that? Like if the government says, if the Georgia government says the movie theaters can open, and let's say Regal decides to open their theaters and somebody gets sick in there, is Regal legally liable for that? Can Regal get sued? Because that is something all the movie theaters are asking themselves right now. It's like, hey, can we do this if we're going to be liable for somebody saying they get sick in our theaters? And right. I think that's something that their legal departments and lawmakers are going to probably already having phone calls with each other right now. Because I'll tell you right now, if the government says to Regal, oh yeah, but if the law says, hey, guess what, Regal, if somebody gets in this current pandemic, if somebody gets sick in your theaters, you can be sued for that. Regal ain't going to open. Regal ain't going to open.
Yeah.
If that's the case. So there's so much work that needs to be done in clarifying whose legal responsibility is it, what type of time frame do we need, all this kind of stuff. There's a lot to go into getting everything reopened. But I do want them open. I'm not going to lie. I want them open. I do. But you got to be open smart. So listen, the question here, guys, is for you. What do you think about this? Most of you are probably like me. You are just itching to get back into the movie theaters. I know I am every single day. But is next week the time, or do we need a little bit more time? I mean, I've been thinking July is optimistic. Let alone April 27th. But I know maybe you guys see some good pros for this. I want to know your thoughts. Jump down into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right.